Alright, YouTube, I'm going to continue on this drawing from where I left off last time. You can see it's coming around pretty good here. Okay, this is actually a remake of Part 3B because my original ended up getting flagged for a lot of copyright infringements. I had some music way in the background, and so in this case now I'm having to redo it, and I'm going to just narrate the best that I can here. And what I'm doing is showing you that I'm using a woodless graphite pencil, and that I have several different brands. This one's just a generic one, but I've never found a woodless pencil I didn't like. I'm using a 2H, and what I'm going to be doing with the 2H is I'm going to start applying some of the foundation for the skin. So, I'm going to start light with the 2H, and then I'll start, working it in darker colors and so forth, and also making sure to get the details in as I go. I don't want to drown out the details that I have and then lose my reference points, which are the dark areas and those grid lines I use for reference. So here I'm using a circular motion. It's more of an oval type motion, and I usually do this when drawing skin that's, like a man's skin, for example. If I was going to do a baby soft skin, or maybe the skin of a woman who has very soft skin, I wouldn't do the circular so much as I would the downward stroke type method. And in all cases, I will use a blender, which we'll see shortly. But right now, all I want to do is get some value down with the 2H. So that's what I'm going to do here, is just get some value down, and then we'll start blending it. Another thing to note here is right there by the bridge of the nose, that area is a little darker than the skin that's just to the left there. And I don't want to lose that darkness. In other words, that's a reference point to where it goes from dark to light. And if I lose that, then I won't know where the highlight of that nose is supposed to start, and I would have to go back in and measure and everything, and that would, it just makes things more difficult. So now here I'm going to go ahead and start blending in the graphite here for the skin. And just like with the pencil, I'm just holding it lightly on the back and letting the blender do the work. Now, this is a very simple thing to do. You're just pushing graphite around. Now, normally when I'm blending, if I see blotchy areas, like you can see there are some blotchy areas on his skin there when I'm blending, normally I would go in with my kneaded eraser, start picking off the blotches, and then continue. That's if the skin was perfect. As far as a photograph is concerned, some photographs the skin just looks absolutely smooth and perfect, but that's not the case for Leo here. So I like the fact that there are some blotches in there, because that's more natural, in my opinion. When you look at his skin, you can see you've got all kinds of different shades going on in every square inch of his face. It goes from light to medium to midtones to dark and so forth. Now what I'm doing here is the grid line was actually still showing through, and While most of the grid lines you can see start to fade into the background and you can't see them anymore, if you can still see the grid line, then go in there with your kneaded eraser and lightly pick it off and reblend, because you don't want any of those grid lines to show through your drawing here. Now you can see I'm blending right next to the bridge of the nose there, the dark area, and I'm going to start losing that dark area, and then I'm going to have a difficult time figuring out where the dark area begins and where the highlight of the bridge starts from there. If I was to continue to the right, that would be a problem. Okay, I'm taking a 2H pencil here, and this is where I'm going to want to restore some of the darkness on the side of his nose there, because I don't want to lose the location of where that is on the drawing. So that's what I'm pointing out right here, is I'm going to add that back in there because I'm starting to lose it, and I don't want to, because I need to know where that change happens right there. Goes from dark to light. Yeah, I was wondering why I was going to go with a 2H. So that's a 2B right there. A little darker pencil. Now I could have edited that out, but I don't want to. I want you to actually see that sometimes you might decide on one pencil and then you think it out and go, you know what, I actually want to use a darker one. That's what I'm going to do here. This way I could just let the pencil glide with very little effort and get that darker tone in. And you'll notice that I'm stopping and starting, stopping. What I'm doing is I'm looking at my reference every step of the way, making sure that everything I put in here is correct. Now, what I know that I'm doing here is already a mistake, because notice that I'm drawing it this in a curve, kind of comes down and curves over to the left from where we're looking at. And in reality, in the reference, it's actually more straight and at a different angle. So now I'm trying to compensate for that. Here I'm going to show you, see that line right there, that darkness, how it's straighter than what I was drawing. And so I'm going in there and I'm going to adjust it by simply adding more graphite in the correct angle. And then I will use my eraser, my kneading eraser, to remove the part that I don't want anymore. So I'm not going to bother removing it just yet. But see, I'm making my adjustment. And keep looking at the reference. I know I'm drawing it too long. but I'm trying to get the angle right. I'm going back and forth, looking at the reference, looking at the negative space, and now I'm going to take off the parts that I don't need. And this is why putting it on lightly is so important, because it allows you to do this. And you can see that I'm easily able to lift that graphite off the paper without any trouble at all. I'm just dabbing my kneaded eraser. Now here I'm going to do a little blending, blend it into the skin that is in the surrounding area. Now that I've achieved the angle and the width that I wanted, and you're going to continue going back and forth. You're going to take a little off, you're going to add a little on. Now I'm going to blend some more of the darker areas that I had just added. And each time that I stop with the blending is because I'm looking at the reference photo. So I'm looking, and then I go back to working on the drawing again. And for photorealism, you want to focus on all the details. You want to get all the proportions correct. You can see I'm looking at angles. I'm comparing the two together, making sure that I've got everything in correct proportion. Now here I'm pointing out that the left area, or by our perspective when we're looking at the photograph, there to the left is lighter than it is to the right of that dark line. And so what I'm going to end up doing is taking my kneaded eraser here and start taking some of that graphite off on the left-hand side of that dark angle line that I put in. And a little later on too, I will be using a piece of Scotch tape to lift out little blotches of graphite. Now here I'm putting in the little minor detail highlights that I see. I may end up blending them out later, but then I'll have to put them back in again later. But for right now, I want to keep trying to get those highlights in there before it gets to a point that there's too much graphite and I can't really get any good highlight in there. So now is a good time for me to just go ahead and put those little, I mean, they're very minute details, but these little details is what really gives the realism. When you start leaving details out, you got a problem. See that those very light lines you see, the highlights and everything? See, I need to work on that. And I'm also having a problem with the tear duct area. I'm not happy with it. So I'm going to be making some adjustments to it, lifting off some of the graphite in that area as well, redrawing the upper lid area there. Now here, real quick here, I'm just checking proportions, making sure that I haven't drawn a bigger eye, wider eye, or anything. The amazing thing about the eye is if you get the eye wrong, if you don't make the eye exactly like the photograph, the whole face changes and it just will not look, it won't look real. It won't look like the real person. It would look like some morphed creature. So every little detail of the eye, I will just slave over that until I get it, you know, to what I consider about as perfect as I can get it. You get the eyes correct, everything else tends to fall together a lot better, and you can probably get away with more on the other items. But I'll tell you, the eye, get the eye right. Whatever you do, just take your time. There's no hurry. And if there is a hurry, you need to be doing something different, because drawing is not something you should rush. You should take your time, enjoy the process, put some nice music going on in the background, get yourself a cup of coffee or some tea, and just chill and enjoy yourself. because it should be an enjoyable thing. And you know, like with anything that takes work, you're going to get to a point where you're tired, or your eyes will be strained, or whatever the case may be. Well, then that's when you put your pencils down, put your tools down, and walk away for a while. You'd be amazed that when you come back, you actually will see things that you need to do that you missed the first time around. And so it kind of gives you fresh eyes. And so taking breaks um, is highly recommended, taking lots of breaks. You can see I'm just focusing on the tear duct. I'm not happy with it. I'm adding graphite. I'm taking it away. I'm adding it. And notice my note there. Just you want to continually look at your reference. Don't draw what you think the eye should look like. Draw what you see. Every little nuance, draw it exactly as you see it. Don't modify it, change it up because you think that the way the eye should look is better than the way it actually looks. And you see I'm redoing the dark shaded area underneath that. I guess we call that the upper inner lid. And I'm improving on it and shading, pulling it off, shading, pulling off. Looking at that reference photo. I'm just staring at it right now, making sure that I haven't missed anything. Okay, this is a Tombow Mono Zero eraser, and usually I'll cut the tip to make a nice sharp edge, and then I can come in here and I can start getting some areas lightened up. Here I'm addressing that shadow area. I'm still not happy with it. I don't like the angle. And there's creases in that area there that I didn't get to my satisfaction. So I'll do it again. Make sure you have a nice sharp point on that 9XXB. That's what I'm using there, the 9XXB. And I'm looking at the reference as I'm doing this, and making sure that I am duplicating exactly what I see. I don't want to get that too dark there, and then I'm going to start to want to blend that area because that's where the shadow of his eye is. The upper lid usually puts a shadow down on the upper part of the eye, and that's the same in this case too, so I'm going to want to make sure I get that darkened in. Now I'm concentrating right here. There's some folds in that area there, so I'm going to try to get those folds in, and I'm darkening the areas to match more what I see in the reference photo. It's a lot darker than I have it so far on my drawing, so I'm going to add some more there. And you can notice that I'm being very meticulous in doing this. I'm not rushing it. I'm not just crayoning the thing. I'm just going in there and just looking at each detail. Did I get this right? Does that look like what I see in the photo? Yes, no. Looks like we need a little bit of shading here, no, a little more highlight there. Now see, I'm going to draw in a little fold that I happen to see, very minor little fold. Every little detail is important. Put it in there if you actually see it on the reference photo. It's amazing, but our eyes, when we look at the drawing and we look at the reference photo, we'll catch these little things. Our audience will catch it. And so they may not know what it is that is wrong, but they'll get a sense that something's not right. I don't know. This doesn't quite look like is it because his eye is a little bigger, or so you want to get all those details. Now I'm putting a little highlight between the two folds because that's what I see on the reference. And this is where I'm using a little piece of Scotch tape and a toothpick. And I'll use that, or I'll use low-tack frisket paper, I guess we can call it paper. Film, there we go. Low-tack frisket film, I'll use that more often than I'll use the Scotch tape. Now here I'm blending around the highlighted areas that I had added. And there's a lot of blending I still need to do around the eyebrows, and need to do some darkening there. Let's see, there's this little shaded, kind of like an upside down triangle right underneath the tear duct, and you see I'm just gently adding in little minor variances of shading, because that's what I see. If I see it, and I'm going to put it in my drawing, and so I realize, okay, I don't want too much highlight there. There's a little shading there, so I'm going to put it in. Check the reference photo. Does it look the same? Did I get rid of my highlights or whatever? Now here I see there's a little V-shaped highlight there that I had drawn in before, and then I lost it, and now I'm putting it back in again. Ever so subtle, and yet you put it in because it's actually there in the reference. You put it in. Have you ever seen that drawing I did on the glass of water? It took me a month to draw that, and I mean that was painstaking detail work. I mean every little bubble and everything on that glass was just taking my time. So you want to do that in all your drawings, and I found that by practicing on that glass, that all the drawings that I would do after that actually improved dramatically, because I conditioned myself to focus on details. And so you want to do that too, is just make a decision to draw something not in a hurry, and just take your sweet time and just make every little detail exact to what you see in the reference photo. Get a little bit of that dark shadows that goes underneath the lower lid there. And then as you go up that lid, it gets brighter and brighter because it's closer to the light. And so I'm definitely making sure I'm getting that in there, because that's on the reference. And this whole shaded area here is going to need to get reworked, I can tell. So I'm adding some more graphite there to that shaded area, and then I'll start to blend it into the neighboring graphite so that there is not as harsh a transition, but a more subtle transition from shadow to light, and then back into shadow again, which I haven't added yet to the side of his face, but you'll see that later on in this video. Okay, 4B. Okay, that's a nice dark pencil. So perhaps I'm going to be starting on the side of the face with that being a dark pencil. No, I'm going to still work on the dark shadow area there. Okay. I don't think I used the 4B that much in this drawing. I'm just doing some minor darkening there. But my preference is the 9XXB for that area of the eye. And so perhaps perhaps I'll realize that without looking ahead in this video here. I'll probably go, okay, you know what, I'm going to go back to a 9XXB, or I'll start working on the side of the face with maybe a 6B or the 9XXB. The 4B on that what we were just looking at would not have been my first choice, because I had already started with a 9XXB and I'm going for high contrast. Here I'm just adding in some of the darker midtones to the area there, just because I don't want to lose my reference points. And as I'm drawing the skin, I'm going to lose those lines, and then I'm not going to know where the nose begins and all that. So I'm putting in the darker value there. And if I notice that the proportion, the distance of the nostril to the eye is off, I'm going to make an adjustment to that, and I'll likely make the adjustment real quick, and then I'll go and take the wrong line out. And I believe that may be what I'm doing here. See, I'm kind of gauging it and go, okay, wait a minute, I put my previous line in wrong. Now I'm putting in the correct one there, and then I'm going to remove the wrong one with my eraser. Now, if you're still watching this, I appreciate that you're able to hang in there with me. Unfortunately, the original audio is gone because of the copyright infringement problem. So I'm kind of winging this, explaining as it goes along the best I can. I'm not looking ahead to see what I'm going to do next. So it's pretty much I'm just remembering my thoughts as I went along on this and expressing what I was thinking most likely. You see, I measured with the divider. I wanted to know exactly what the distance was for that nostril. All right, here's where I use the Scotch tape, and I'm going to get some of those little white dotted highlights in there. And as I do it, I know that some of them are getting kind of big. They're a lot larger than I like, but I will key those down with a harder pencil, a lighter pencil. Here I'm just going to kind of brush it with a Q-tip, cotton tip, whatever you want to call these things, buds. And that's not going to change the size of those white areas there, or those light areas, but it's going to key down, because on his face it's not that bright white, so I want to make sure that I don't make it that bright. But see, I'm going to go in with a 2H there, and I'm going to actually cut into some of those with the circular motion, and they'll become smaller light areas, more circular. And you can see how they turn more into like little tiny lit pores. That's the look I'm going for right there, as opposed to those big old, here you'll see in a second. Now I'm going to try to see if I can get these dotted. But some of them get a little bit large if I let my hand slide on the Scotch tape. Now that looks pretty good. Now here you're going to see some big ones show up, and see. You can see how there's some big, yeah, those are not dots, and so I'm going to have to go in there with the pencil and blender and with a little circular motion and so forth. I will key those down, and you will see that it will become more realistic as I'm doing that. So there you go. I'm shading it down because it's too bright, and at the same time you'll notice that those big white things now become more of lighter dots or pores, if you will. And that's the effect that I'm looking for as I'm doing this. And see, some of them I'm splitting in half because they're long. And you can see how it just starts shaping up by just using some of these little simple methods. And I'll be doing that a lot more on the face there for the highlighted areas. Because you don't just have light area, dark area. You have a whole mixture of dark, midtones, highlights, all mixed in every square inch of his face. And trying to get that realism going there, I'm going to want to get the variety in there, so that at least when you're looking at it, it will trick your eyes to think that that's actually his skin texture that you're looking at. So as we get further along in this video, you'll see how it starts to shape up, and it won't look like he's being attacked by a bunch of snow flurries. And things like this, it's just a matter of adding graphite, taking graphite off, adding graphite until you get it the way you like it. And so when you're watching these videos, or when I'm watching a drawing video, for example, and I still like watching them, sometimes you look at it and goes, that's not looking right, but you have to wait, you have to be patient, because it will start to make sense as you continue working on the drawing. It will all start to take shape. You can see on the reference, can you see all the white little pores and stuff that starts underneath the eye there, and it branches all over his cheek? You have midtones and lighter than midtones all over the place, interspersed. And so that's what I want to make sure I get that kind of look, little circular things. Okay, right now I'm just kind of moving away from the skin and focusing more on the angle of the eyebrows and the darker areas, trying to get it darker. As you can see, the reference on the right, it's darker than what I have my drawing at right now. And I'm going to want to get mine darker. And do not be afraid to go dark. I mean, you're going to think you're going too dark, but as you start to draw the surrounding details in skin, you're going to find out you didn't go dark enough, because everything that you draw around it will start to make what you drew dark look lighter. So you'll have to come back and go even darker. So sometimes it's just better to go dark initially, and it will also let you know the darkest you can possibly go, because you took care of going as dark as possible for the darkest areas of the face. In this case, it's the pupil of his eye would be the darkest. And in this reference photo, of course, it looks like his eyebrows, his hair is very, very dark. There's no detail showing in many of those dark areas. And that's basically what you have to mimic. There's very few highlights in that eyebrow, and I have a lot more than there is on the reference, so I will be working that over time. As I continue on the rest of the photograph, the drawing, I'll come back and darken those areas. Another thing too is I'm going to have to work on the angle of that eyebrow a little bit more to the left of us there. From our standpoint, it'd be the left of that eyeball there. Where I'm currently erasing, I need that angle there to match more the reference, and I'm going to have to continue working on that still. In this video, I don't quite finish that, but I am noticing it here in the process that I'm looking at it and going, okay, that angle's a little better, and now I start focusing on going a little darker. It's all in the details, folks. It's all in the details. Underneath the upper lid, you need to get that really dark, which is like the reference photo. So I need to get that really dark, and so I'm getting in there. I'm working on adding more of this 9XXB underneath there. Sometimes we can be a little afraid to add the dark, but I come back and I go, okay, I need to go a little darker here, so I'm adding that in. I'm going to want to get it underneath that eye, the puffy part of the eye there too. And one of the things I notice is that as it goes from that underneath the puffy part of his eye there, the lower lid, out towards the side of his face where the cheekbone goes a little higher up, it goes from dark to lighter to lighter to lighter, and I need to be able to duplicate that. And so before this drawing is done, I will definitely have that done. That'll be part of my drawing of his skin. In this video, a lot of the focus will be on the eye. You can see that, you notice I'll slow down and then I'll speed up. It's because I stop and I'm looking at the reference photo. See, okay, he has a little bit of shadow there. I want to get that in there. There's a little shadow right there. I want to get that in there. Do I have the right angle? I want to check that. I notice there's a slight minor connection between those two dark lines. I put that in a little bit. I'll blend it out a little later. Again, going for getting that area dark in there. And you can start seeing that the drawing starts to really develop as you do that. Now I'm trying to go for the 3D effect here where the lid comes from underneath dark and loops up to the light. The surrounding area, that upper eyelid, because the center of it is closer to the light, it needs to be lighter. And then as it moves away, it needs to get darker, so I'm working on that. I'm also adding more darkness there, and I'm not so concerned about hair details showing because the reference doesn't have that much hair detail showing, so I need to get some more value in there. And real soon here I'm going to have to do some blending. I've already added enough material that some blending should get done here, and then I'll go back and add some more material again if necessary. Here I'm still working on that angle. I'm not happy with it. There's some areas in there that I want to make sure that I lighten up, that separates those groups of black hairs. And just as I'm narrating this, I could see things that I need to do. It's very helpful to actually be able to look at your own work and go, okay, you know what, I need to do this over here. I missed this over there. All right, let's get some of those dark hairs in there, that upper area there. All right, now I'm bringing the shading, the blending in. I was wondering when that was going to show up. That softens the area there. I'll have to darken it up again later. But then I'm moving that material around. Just get some of that skin in the surrounding area. Some more adjustments. Definitely get those dark hairs there on the upper lid. Gotta get those in there. You have to keep this pencil sharp. Without it being sharp, you're not going to get details very well with this pencil. At a straight line, I have to get that out. I let the pencil pretty much slip out of my hands there. So I'm checking everything very carefully between the reference and the drawing. Now, I can also see why a lot of people go the time-lapse route. I don't learn a lot from time-lapse videos myself. Um, they're entertaining in that you can just see the drawing unfold before your eyes. That's nice. But if you're into learning, I mean, sure, this could be a little slow this way, but this is real time and this is realistic. This is, you're going to be spending some time drawing, and you're not going to draw in time lapse. And some of your comments that I've read, has shown that most of you appreciate the real time of these tutorials. So I'll keep doing them if I can on the real time. You see here, I'm adding more shading, dark shading in that area because of the reference. And there, right there in those folds needs to be much darker. There's shadow there on the reference that I haven't quite put in yet, and I'm going to be putting those in, darkening that area up, and making sure those folds show up like they do in the reference. And you can see this eye is starting to take shape. If you take your time, you'll be very proud of your work when you're done. And that will be a motivator to do more. So I'm getting in that shadow area from due to the upper eyelid. Getting the blending done underneath, or not underneath, but on the upper eyelid. The 9XXB has a way of leaving kind of a graininess due to the carbon that is in the graphite mix. And so you really want to blend that out. And I'm getting some of the little highlights areas that I see in the reference, putting those in on the upper lid. parts of this um, face is, and I'm adding in the dark values in those areas, and I'll make adjustments as I go along. Okay, looks like I'm switching to a 2H. I must be working back in that light area again. Sure enough. Now, by going over the dark area with the 2H, it fills in a lot of the paper fiber there that the softer pencil will not. The softer pencil is going to leave a pattern, the paper pattern. The 2H has a greater tendency of filling in that area, and then when I blend it, it'll even fill in more. And then I'll use that as a transition. Now here's where I'm going to start blending it all in. Now here, see, we go from the dark area to the light area. I'm blending out the harsh line between the two so that it looks more like a transition. There'll have to be a lot more refinement done on this skin. This is just the beginning stages. And again, this video is on the eye, so I don't want to focus too much on the skin when I intended to focus more on the eye, but this is the area around the eye, so I wanted to make sure I got that in there. It's all part of the process here. These cheekbones and everything, I want to accentuate where it goes from dark area into light area. I'm definitely lightening my touch of that blender, making sure I don't get it too dark in that lightened area there. I have to do a lot more in that lighted area. You know, I could see that on the reference to the right, you have a lot more highlight and much darker shadows than what I have going here right now. So I will definitely have to go back in there and make those adjustments. You start off though, definitely get the darker darks in, because that will start to lighten up your areas that you think is not light enough. I'm just moving graphite around to you know, get a base. I want to get some tonal value down into that area. There'll be no white of the paper showing through the skin at all. So you want to make sure that you get all the white area of the paper covered. The only part of his face that should be the white of the paper is the highlight of his pupil, of which I had put liquid frisket in there to protect it. And I'll still have to get back to the eye, the iris and everything, and work on that some more. I just wanted to move away to the outer areas. Now we're coming to the end of this tutorial here. I can see we should be pretty close. So start lightening up some of the areas there that's a little blotchy, and where the shadow kind of intrudes into the area that it shouldn't. Now we'll start working on some of that graphite that's around those white pore areas, because it's a lot lighter than what I have it right now. So I'm actually, while doing this, it's going to actually lighten that area some more. I'm going everywhere that I see graphite around those white little pores. I'm pulling those up, and that's going to keep lightening it up and softening some of those white dots and lines because they're a little harsh. So to get it to flow a little bit better. So I could see that like directly right underneath. Now I'm moving into that area that I'm talking about, where I want to get that like white line out of there that kind of showed up, and it starts to blend away. You have to expect to do a lot of this, pulling things off and putting things back down again. I'm just lifting it off, and I'm liking what I see as I'm lifting it off. The texture of the skin's getting a little better. It's not perfect, but it's getting a little better. And each time I make an adjustment, things are getting closer and closer to the reference photo. See, that skin is starting to look really good compared to the reference. I'm really starting to like that. There's still more to be done. I can see there's some wrinkle lines I'm going to have to incorporate in there pretty soon. The side of his face is going to have to get much darker. But that's it for that. So thanks again for watching, and thumbs up.